To the final, celebrity top five, not just of the week, but the year as well. We say warm welcome to RUC Chief Constable, Sir Ronnie Flanagan. Welcome to the programme.
Good afternoon, thanks for having me along.
Do you think it was almost, I suppose, a vocation that you became a police officer?
Absolutely not. Certainly as a child, I had no notion that that's what I would end up doing. I probably was more inclined to be a teacher or something of that nature. But in 1970, I joined when we all thought Northern Ireland was at the dawn of a new era, just as we're feeling now. And the RUC had been totally transformed. We'd had the Hunt Report. It had become a totally unarmed organisation with stations totally open to the public. And I joined, as did a lot of other people then, thinking that a contribution could be made to a new and better society. So that's why I joined the police. But it wasn't a burning ambition from childhood days, nor was there any family tradition of policing.
Looking back to your childhood, I suppose somebody would expect a man in your position to have been a very, very disciplined child, a very respectful child of law and order. Were you like that, or were you slightly mischievous?
No, I think I'd be slightly mischievous and just part of the rough and tumble that applied to all my friends in childhood days. I grew up in the Old Park Road, a totally mixed area. Religion played no part in friendships, thank goodness. And I would guess we were mischievous. We played football in the street, we swung on the street lamps. We used to think that the police were harassing us when they appeared to stop all these activities, but as we grew up we realised that actually we were harassing the neighbours. We were not being harassed by the police.
You tend to find in Northern Ireland as well, being a member of the security forces is almost like a tradition. Was that a tradition that ran through your family?
No tradition whatever. I had no friends or relatives in the police, but a very close friend of an older brother of mine, someone whom I had known through school, joined the police, and just in that whole era of change I had a number of conversations with him through which I thought this was something I wanted to do, and certainly it's something that I haven't regretted for an instant. I've relished every day of my almost 30 years service.
What about aspirations when you joined, as you say, 30 years ago as a young constable? Did you see yourself elevating to the position you're now in, which is Chief Constable?
Not for a second, and in many senses my career would have been shaped for me by others, and certainly there were many who offered me a lot of encouragement. I think of mentors like Chief Inspector Willie Junkin, who guided and encouraged me, but it wasn't something that I was driven by to progress in terms of rank. I relished every job I've ever held. I loved being a constable, and I loved every job I've held in every rank, so I wasn't driven by ambition.
People would see the police, in particular the RUC, with the situation they've had to deal with for 30 years now, as being a very serious one, but I would imagine there were quite a few lighter times as being a policeman, and I'm sure one or two funny instances that have happened to you and indeed other colleagues through your career.
Oh, absolutely, and I think the police have a tremendous history of dealing with sometimes the most dreadful situations and coping with them through humour. I remember my first night on night duty was the 15th of August in 1970, and Belfast was subjected to a terrible flood, and on that night, in fact, an explosion blew out the front of the Royal Naval Recruiting Office on Hard Street, and we were detailed to stand guard at the front of that building all night in the most torrential rain, and suddenly you begin to question whether you've made the right choice. But the sort of colleagues I was working with and sharing that long stint with kept the proceedings light with their humour, and many humorous incidences, many humorous events that I can recall that just show the human side of policing. And policemen and women are that above all else, human beings who laugh and cry and hurt just like any other human beings, and people often sadly forget that.
Let's look at your first choice in your top five, Van Morrison and Memories. Why this one?
Well, I think just because of so many happy memories of childhood days in the Old Park Road, so many happy memories of my career of service in the police, some sad memories as well, but at this time of year I think memories are important, particularly happy memories, and sadly there are many homes and many police homes where the memories will not be of a happy nature. So in paying deference to the whole concept of memories, this is a song that I think means a lot to me.
Hi, RUC Chief Constable, Sir Ronnie Flanagan, welcome back. We were talking yesterday about your early days on the police. What do you like to do in your spare time, on your days off?
Well, I'm interested in sport, particularly rugby. I like to read, particularly poetry. I love the poetry of Yeats. I love listening to a whole variety of music, particularly Bob Dylan and Van Morrison, but by no means exclusively that. I remember going to see Bob Dylan one night in what was the Ritz cinema in those days. 12 and sixpence it cost in the 60s, and I remember my father, who working in the shipyard didn't have much money, actually saving his bus fare to give me the 12 and sixpence to go along, and it was an incredible thrill for me to see Bob Dylan live in the flesh.
Is it very hard for you to relax and unwind?
No, certainly not, and I've always tried to live life as normally as it's possible to live, and that's not to ignore the restrictions that security sometimes necessarily places in your path, but certainly I've always been determined not to a bunker, and through playing rugby and coaching rugby I've always travelled everywhere: Dublin, Cork, Limerick, Galway, and if you do sensibly, and even in the days of terrorism, if you do so anonymously, then there's no reason why you can't live a virtually normal life, and that's something I've certainly always striven to do.
A lot of people would say that you've changed the face of policing in Northern Ireland in the sense that from your position as Chief Constable, you've made it more personable. You've made the Chief Constable, if you like, a more human person by being seen so much in the media, by quite willing to talk and sit down with various people right across the board. Is that a fair comment, and B, is that something you